Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon.
We have a real treat this Shabbat. We have the honor of hosting and about to hear words of Torah from Rabbi Gershom Sizomu, a man whose story and legacy I have known about for many years and become more familiar with in the more recent years, but just met for the first time today. Rabbi Sizomu is the rabbi of the Abayudaya Jewish community in Uganda. He is the grandson of the original community elder, Rabbi Samson Mugombe. He was ordained here at the Ziegler Rabbinical School a few years before I arrived in Los Angeles. We did not overlap, and now we have the great blessing of having members of his extended family in the Beth community as where they Daphna and Samson and Shira are with us as Samson studies and Ziegler Rabbinical School as well. A little plug that, as many of you know, this year's synagogue trip coming up in June and July is to Poland and to Hungary and to the Czech Republic. But next year, God willing, although the details have not been set, we're going to bring Beth to Africa and spend Shabbat with the indigenous Jewish community in Kenya and spend Shabbat blessedly with Rabbi Sizomu's Jewish community in Uganda. So it's such a blessing to have you with us, and it's with great honor that I invite you to our bima to share words of Torah this morning. Rabbi Sizomu.
I bring you greetings from Uganda. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We had a disaster of a landslide in my area. Baruch Hashem, none of my people is affected. But over 300 people are feared dead due to torrential rain and people living in the mountains. So I just wanted to put that out. But I am honored to be here, and I want to thank the clergy for inviting me to this beautiful synagogue, beautiful congregation, beautiful, wonderful people. I am so delighted to meet my teacher and Rav, Rabbi Dof, here in this synagogue. And the law prohibits us to teach Torah before our teachers, but I went to him and gave him a hug and gave me permission by that hug to be teaching Torah today. I was inspired with the story of the twins, and this is Yaakov and Esav. And when we look into this story, one of the twins calls himself Esav. And this is Yaakov calling himself Esav and identifying himself as Esav before his father. And so I'm talking about two identities, the identity of Esav and that of Yaakov. The Torah describes Esav as Ish Sadeh. It also defines Yaakov as Ish Tam, Yoshev or Halim. Ish Sadeh is a man of the field. He's out there. And the Midrash and the Rashi says Ish Sadeh because he goes out to hunt. Actually, the Midrash doesn't like Esav so much. It says he goes out there with a cachet, with an arrow and bow, and hunts animals and birds, but also kills people. So that is Ish Sadeh. Ish Tam is a little difficult to explain. When you go to the BDB, which is the dictionary we use in rabbinic school, it says a wholesome man, a complete man, a person who is engaged wholly in acts of righteousness. And the Midrash and the Rashi continue to say that Ishtam refers to a man who sits in the tents of evil and shame learning Torah. In the Beit Midrash of Shem and Ever, learning Torah. But the BDB goes ahead to say each term could also refer to a simple man who is not an expert in whatever Esav is doing out there. A man who from the morning to the evening sits in one place and studies Torah each time. And now the question that I pose before everybody, a rhetorical question, is which of these personalities do we want to choose to be? Ish Tam, Yoshev Halim, or Ish Sadeh? And we see Yaakov from the story of receiving a bracha, receiving a blessing from their father, Isaac. Because the blessing from Isaac was meant for Esav, Yaakov and his mom, Rivka, find a way of presenting Yaakov as Esav so he can get the blessing. And so, Yaakov goes to his father and says, I am Esav, your son. So, does Jacob know who he is? Is he Esav or is he Jacob? The father actually is confused a little bit. He says, I hear the sound, the voice of Yaakov, but when I feel you physically, you are like Esav. Meaning, Yaakov is trying to become Esav. He's trying to get out of the Ohalim and go out in the Sadeh. And indeed, what happens at the end of it all, when Esav seeks to take the life of his brother Yaakov, Yaakov is told to go out. And he embarks on a Lech Lecha. It's similar to a Lech Lecha story, where Abraham leaves his homeland and goes to a place. So Yaakov goes, he encounters angels, but he goes to his father-in-law in Padan Aram, and this is Lavan. While he's with Lavan, he learns to be Ish Sadeh. Lavan teaches Yaakov to be Ish Sadeh, a man of the fields. He goes out to look after animals, and he works very hard to marry Rachel, and an additional time to work for marriage of Leah. And he marries the two. The Midrash says that Leah was supposed to be a wife of Esav. But you know from the story that we read, Esav chose to marry women who were not very close to Judaism. He went out and married the women of the land. And yet his wife Leah was waiting. So Yaakov, who has presented himself as Esav, goes to marry his bride, Rachel, but also marries Leah. Would that seem to be like Yaakov has two personalities? He has Esav in him marrying Leah, and is Yaakov marrying his Rachel? So now we look at this double personality. Yaakov actually doesn't know his name. When it is time to leave his father-in-law, the story continues to say, he sends Vaishlach, he sends Malachim, angels or men, to his brother, because he was told his brother had an army of 400 people coming to meet him. And that would be war. So before he meets his brother Esav, there is an angel who comes to test Yaakov if he's still Ishtam Yoshevo Halim, a man of the tents, or is he a man of the saddle? What does the angel do? They fight. They wrestle. And the angel says, your name shouldn't be Yaakov. Your name should be Israel, which means to struggle. A hustler. A man of the field is a hustler, but a man of the tents is not. So Yaakov is given another name. No wonder he maintains Yaakov. Because what I'm driving at is we are not only Yaakov, we are Yaakov and Esau together. I disagree with the understanding that Esav is not good. Esav is necessary, is a complement to Yaakov. Because from the beginning of the story, Toldot, chapter 25, verse 24, it says that Verav Ya'avod Sa'ir, that the older son shall serve the young one. When somebody serves you, is not your enemy. A person who serves you is complimenting on you. We need a serve, because the serve serves Yaakov. And when the two are together and serving each other, then we have Israel. We don't need to sit in the tents. I'm speaking about Erez Israel. During the time when Israel was not in existence, Jewish people suffered so much. They were not respected. Because we were Yaakov, Ishtam, Yoshev, or Halim. But when the state of Israel was formed, we have the state with economic infrastructure and also with a military infrastructure. And because of that, Jewish people are respected. Imagine what is going on now. If Israel was not in existence, what would happen? There is war in Israel and there are demonstrations in the United States. Demonstrations in Amsterdam, even with the presence of Israel. So the military wing of the Jewish people is what I call Esav. Because Esav has a bow and an arrow out there, ready to serve Yaakov. And because Esav sold his birthright, it's the reason why Yaakov comes to present to his father, present himself as both Yaakov and Esav. So we assumed the roles of Esav the day when Esav sold his birthright. And so we became both Yaakov and Esav. A combination of which produces Israel, a struggler, a person who struggles with man and God and still wins. And for that reason, I come here to ask for support for the military wing of the Jewish people, and that is the state of Israel. I have been reliably told that there are some Jewish people who don't support the fact that Israel had to respond the way she responded. How can we survive without Israel? How can we survive in a world that wants to wipe out Israel from the map of the earth? How can we survive when people say from the river to the ocean? How can we survive when Hamas and Hezbollah are building military equipment and infrastructure designed to wipe out Israel? Those rockets are not designed for any other nation. They are not coming to Uganda. They are not flying to Kenya or to the United States. They are meant to destroy Israel. How can we respond? Shall we be Ishtam, Yoshev, or Halim? Is that the best choice? So, whoever has the means to support Israel, I request kindly that we support Israel. Because Israel is a combination of the personalities of Yaakov and Esav together. Because Rav Ya'avod et Sa'ir. Esav shall serve Yaakov. And it's the same story in my community. For so many years, we will be talking about my community. We have been in existence for 100 years. And for 100 years, my ancestors chose to teach their people Torah. And they said you should not go to school because the schools were managed by Christian missionaries with the design of converting whoever goes through their school system to Christianity. So how did they respond? They said, no going to school. You stay home, grow beans and maize and bananas, we shall eat that. So I grew up as an Ishtam, Yoshev, or Halim, until I realized that I needed to be both Yaakov and Esav, and sought to go to school. I actually went to an Islamic university where I was taught that Jews are not good people. When I was Jewish, actually, I hid my identity when I was at the Islamic university. And they thought I still kept my kippah, but they thought I was a Muslim who doesn't want to go to the mosque. They would say, Salaam alaikum. They taught about Jewish people. They wanted me to be more involved so I can be a Muslim. I resisted all that and got a degree. And inside my heart, I wanted to show the people of Uganda that I'm not Ishtam, Yoshev, or Halim. To the point that one time after rabbinic school, I was taught to speak in public, because Ishtam, you may not speak in public. Speaking in public is one of the scariest things. So in a rabbinic school, I was taught and trained to speak in public. I went home and began to campaign. The other part of Yaakov, which is Esav, began to come through me out. And I projected it out very well that the people of Uganda elected me as the first Jewish man ever to go to the Uganda National Parliament. And I was in the Uganda Parliament for 5 years with my kippah because that was necessary. We received, as a Jewish community of Uganda, political respect as a result. And I want to tell you why we received it, because I kept my kippah on, showing that I was both Jacob and Esav, holding both candles in my hand. There is a story. There is a young man in our area who ran mad, and he was walking at night, speaking, talking to himself, which is very dangerous. So one time, the village security teams were chasing after thieves that had stolen a cow. You know, for us, when they steal, they don't steal banks. They rob what we grow: cows, goats, chickens, and the food. So they had invaded one of the people in the area and they had taken their cow. So the security team was alerted and they were looking for the thief. They encountered this young Jewish boy who is now crazy, moving at night, and it was 3 a.m. in the morning. And they thought he was the cattle thief. So they descended on him, but before they could harm him, because in Uganda at night and you're a thief in the village, they use what we call mob justice. They are not taking you to court, they are not taking you to police, they will kill you right there. So the boy survived death because everybody in our area had known that their member of parliament is a Jew who wears a small Jewish cap. And this young man, mad as he was, had a Jewish kippah on him. So before they killed him, they said, wait a minute. No, this is not a thief. This man must be part of Rabbi Gershom's congregation. He must be one of the Jewish people around. And we don't believe he can steal a car. So he survived because we put ourselves out there and presented our Esav part. So I wanted to say that more of what my stories will be heard when we speak about the community. But in conclusion, I'm calling upon our people here. If you have means to support Israel, please support Israel. And if you have means to support my community, because most of the people there are Yoshev or Halim, we need to bring out the Esav part of our community in order to, because right now I am privileged to have been in the United States, and Samson and the Daphne and the Shira and the Bina in the US, you know the difference. But when you go back there, it is all humbleness. People have to be humble. I tell my people every day that we need to participate in the politics of the world, because the political wing of the Jewish people is the Esav I am talking about. And we need it for our strength, because that is what serves us. Rav Ya'avod et Sa'ir. To the extent that I even talk about becoming president of Uganda. You know, Uganda was supposed to be Israel. Had the Zionist Congress accepted the proposal to make Uganda Israel, I would be speaking to you as the chief rabbi of Israel. Because in Uganda, I would be the chief rabbi. So now, I am talking about even taking a big office in Uganda, if possible. But all that needs that we uphold both Yaakov and Esau. That we support Yaakov, we support the Torah study, but we also support the political wing and economic wing of our people.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.